There will come a time, perhaps quietly, when you realize that your suffering was never caused by what happened to you, but by your refusal to let it be. You fought life as though it were an enemy to be conquered, a storm to survive, a wound to heal. Yet, in truth, life was never your adversary. It was your reflection, the silent echo of your own resistance. Suffering, though it feels so real and personal, is not the natural state of existence. It is something we create when we resist the nature of what is. Pain is inevitable. Bodies ache, hearts break, and people leave. Yet suffering is optional, because it is born not from pain itself, but from the mind's desperate attempt to push pain away, to deny it, to pretend that what has happened should not have. This resistance turns a passing discomfort into a lifelong companion. It transforms what could have been a moment of clarity into a prison of thought. We imagine that if we fight against what hurts us, we are protecting ourselves. But in truth, we are only deepening the wound. There is a strange paradox in life. The more you resist something, the more power it gains over you. Think of a river. The more tightly you try to dam it, the more pressure builds behind the wall. Eventually, the flood comes. This is how resistance breeds suffering, not because the current is cruel, but because we never learned how to flow with it. Pain only wishes to move through us, to be felt, seen, understood, and released. Yet the mind clings to it, analyzes it, dramatizes it, and calls it mine. The moment we identify with the pain, we trap it inside us. The irony is that the act of resistance feels like control, but it's really fear. We resist what we cannot predict, what we cannot dominate, what threatens our illusion of certainty. We think, if I can just make this go away, I'll be free. But freedom never comes from avoidance. It comes from intimacy, from leaning in, from touching the edge of discomfort and saying, "Yes, I see you." To meet pain with openness instead of rejection is to strip it of its sting. It becomes sensation instead of suffering, experience instead of enemy. You cannot stop the rain, but you can stop believing that it shouldn't fall. You cannot erase loss, but you can stop assuming it means something has gone wrong. Life was never designed to please you. It was designed to awaken you. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every quiet ache beneath your ribs, all of it is an invitation to see that the one who suffers is only a story told by the mind. When you stop clinging to that story, pain passes through you like wind through an open window. So, suffering is not an inevitable truth of existence. It is the shadow of resistance. The moment you drop the fight, not out of defeat, but out of deep understanding, you realize there was never anything to fight in the first place. The storm was never against you. It was you, all along, moving through a necessary transformation. Pain can awaken you, but only if you let it move. When you allow life to be what it is, when you stop insisting that it should be otherwise, suffering disappears. What remains is simple presence, raw, alive, and untouched. The desire to control life is perhaps the greatest illusion the mind ever invented. It gives you the comforting sense that you are the author of every scene, the director of every outcome, the master every tide. Yet, the more you try to tighten your grip, the more life slips through your fingers like sand. Control promises safety but delivers only exhaustion. You become trapped in endless management of people, of circumstances, of your own feelings, as if your happiness depended on the world obeying your will. And when it doesn't, which it never truly does, you call it suffering. This illusion begins early. You're taught that success is control, that happiness is control, that love is control, that the more you can predict and shape your world, the more secure you'll feel. But have you noticed that the most unpredictable moments often hold the greatest beauty? The laughter that bursts without warning, the sudden kindness from a stranger, the unexpected turn that leads to a new path. None of these can be controlled, yet they move you most deeply. Control may bring stability, but it cannot bring wonder. It can build walls, but never peace. When you live under the illusion of control, you begin to fear life's spontaneity. You fear failure, loss, change, death, because they remind you that the universe moves according to its own rhythm, not yours. You start fighting that rhythm, treating life like a wild horse that must be tamed. Yet the horse was never your enemy. It only wished to carry you if you'd stop pulling the reins so tightly. The irony is that the moment you stop trying to dominate life, life begins to cooperate. It reveals its intelligence, its timing, its flow. True peace is not found in mastering every event, it's found in surrendering to them. To surrender does not mean to give up. It means to align yourself with what already is. It is the realization that you are not separate from the unfolding of existence. You are part of it. You are not the one steering the river. You are the river. Every wave, every turn, every fall is simply the movement of your own being through time. When you see this, the need for control dissolves like fog in the morning sun. The end of control is the beginning of trust. You start to trust life's intelligence more than your own plans. You start to see that even the events you once labeled as mistakes were necessary steps in a larger dance. You begin to notice how each difficulty carries its own lesson, how each loss creates space for something new. You stop trying to edit the script and start living the story. When the illusion of control fades, you return to a deeper rhythm, one that doesn't need managing, predicting, or protecting. You move through the world not as a fearful manager, but as a conscious participant. Then, suffering loses its grip, because you no longer demand that life be different from what it is. You let it breathe, you let it flow, and in that openness, peace arises naturally, not as something you must earn, but as something that was always waiting behind your resistance. Acceptance is the quiet magic that turns pain into peace, not by erasing what hurts, but by allowing it to exist. It's the art of seeing reality without the armor of judgment. The mind always wants to label, fix, and justify. But life is not asking for repair, it's asking for recognition. When you accept a moment as it is, even in its raw imperfection, you are no longer a prisoner of it. You stop fighting against the current, and suddenly, the water that once threatened to drown you begins to carry you instead. What acceptance truly means is often misunderstood. It is not passive. It is not giving up or pretending that everything is fine. It is the courageous act of saying yes to what already is. That simple yes opens a door inside you, a door to presence, to awareness, to peace. When you stop arguing with reality, you discover that there was never a true conflict to begin with. Life is not cruel, it is just uninterested in your conditions for happiness. It moves the way it moves, and you suffer only when you demand it move differently. Pain, when accepted, transforms. It becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor. Every wound holds wisdom, but you can't hear it while shouting, "This shouldn't be happening." Only when the noise of resistance quiets does the message emerge. The message that you are growing, that endings are beginnings in disguise, that everything is unfolding in its necessary way. Acceptance reveals that nothing is wasted, not even your tears. It's easy to accept when things align with your desires, when the world mirrors your expectations. But true acceptance begins where comfort ends. It asks you to embrace uncertainty, to be at peace in the middle of what you don't understand. It asks you to trust that life knows how to heal itself, how to balance, how to renew. Even the night, in all its darkness, holds the promise of dawn. The sun does not rise because you demand it. It rises because that is its nature. Acceptance is learning to rest in that rhythm. The alchemy of acceptance lies in its paradox. The moment you stop trying to change your experience begins to change. The tension dissolves, the story loses weight, and you realize that pain was never the enemy. It was the resistance around it that burned. Acceptance strips away that resistance. It brings you face to face with the raw simplicity of being alive, breathing, feeling, existing in this infinite, unfolding moment. And once you've touched that state, suffering can no longer take root. Not because pain disappears, but because you've learned to hold it differently. You no longer clutch it like a burden. You cradle it like a wave that passes through you. Acceptance doesn't make you invincible. It makes you real. It returns you to the truth that peace isn't found in changing life, but in allowing life to change you. There comes a profound realization when you begin to see that life is not happening to you, but as you. This shift dissolves the old story of separation. The story that you are a small being tossed about by forces beyond your control. That story is the birthplace of suffering. It creates the illusion of a hostile world, one that must be fought, conquered, or escaped. But the truth is simpler and infinitely more liberating. You and life are not two things. The same intelligence that makes rivers flow and galaxies spin is the same force that breathes you in this very moment. You are not merely living within the universe, you are an expression of it. When you stop identifying as a victim of circumstance and start recognizing yourself as part of the flow, everything changes. The events that once felt like punishment begin to appear as invitations. Each difficulty, each heartbreak, each delay becomes a mirror reflecting the hidden parts of yourself. The people who challenge you the most are not obstacles placed in your way. They are teachers dressed in disguise, drawing your attention to where you are still asleep. In this light, life no longer feels like an enemy. It feels intimate, intelligent, and purposeful, even when it hurts. The mind, of course, resists this truth. It clings to its identity as the observer, the one to whom life happens. It says, "I didn't choose this. I didn't want this." But who is that? The moment you look closely, it begins to dissolve. What you find is that there has never been a separation between you and the unfolding of existence. The wave does not control the ocean, yet it is never apart from it. Likewise, you are not controlling life, but you are never outside its movement. To see life as happening as you is to recognize that every experience is a reflection of your own consciousness. The world mirrors your inner state, not as punishment or reward, but as a form of communication. When you move with anger, the world feels harsh. When you rest in love, the world softens. The outer and the inner are not two. They are different faces of the same mystery. This is why awakening is not about escaping the world, but embracing it. Every moment, every emotion, every encounter is your own being in motion. Once this is seen, the sense of struggle begins to dissolve. You no longer feel the need to control, because you understand there is no separate controller. You no longer feel lost, because you were never outside the path. You realize that the universe has never conspired against you. It is you, learning, remembering, evolving through form. To resist life is to resist yourself. To flow with it is to return home. When you awaken to this truth, suffering loses its meaning. Life is no longer a series of trials to endure, but an ever-changing dance to participate in. The dancer and the dance were never apart. You are both. The movement and the music, the breath and the breathing. And in that realization, all struggle falls away, leaving only the quiet wonder of being alive. Freedom begins the moment you stop trying to escape the present moment. For most of your life, you have been trained to believe that happiness, peace, and safety exist somewhere else. In another job, another relationship, another city, another version of yourself. You are always reaching, always planning, always hoping that the next moment will bring relief. And yet, the more you chase the elsewhere, the further away you drift from life itself. The irony is that freedom is never ahead of you. It is always here, always now, waiting quietly beneath the noise of your mind. The mind fears the present because it is raw, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. It whispers, "You must escape this. You must change this. You must fix this." So you run, building walls of distraction, defense, and denial. You cling to habits, routines, and ideas that promise safety. But no amount of avoidance can dissolve the moment you are trying to flee. It remains persistent and alive, like a mirror reflecting every fear you have tried to hide. Until you stop running, you remain in chains, not of circumstance, but of thought. True freedom is the courage to meet what is without resistance. It is the gentle recognition that the present, in all its imperfection, is enough. To stop escaping does not mean to stop living. It means to live fully, with attention and awareness, to inhabit your body, your mind, your sensations, and your emotions completely. It is the willingness to let life be what it is, to move with its rhythm instead of against it. This is the space where peace arises, not as a distant prize, but as an intimate, immediate reality. When you cease fleeing the moment, fear loses its power. You see that nothing outside yourself can harm you unless you give it permission. The future cannot rob you of peace unless you surrender it to anxiety, and the past cannot chain you unless you remain entangled in memory. By embracing now, by stopping the endless, if onlys, and what nexts, you reclaim the natural freedom that was always yours. You discover that life is not a prison to escape from, but a landscape to explore with curiosity and presence. The paradox is that the more fully you inhabit each moment, the less you feel the need to control or avoid. Freedom is not obtained, it is uncovered. A quiet realization that there is nowhere to go, nothing to fix, and no one to become. It is the soft surrender that reveals the world as it truly is, a living, breathing expression of your own consciousness, unfolding endlessly in harmony with itself. When you stop trying to escape, the chains of suffering dissolve, leaving only the effortless dance of existence. So, freedom begins not in some distant horizon, but in the simple act of stopping. Stop resisting. Stop fleeing. Stop believing that the present must be other than it is. And in that stillness, you will find it, a peace so complete, so profound, that suffering can no longer touch you. It is not a gift to be earned, nor a place to reach. It is the natural state of being, revealed the moment you stop trying to escape.